What up, Misfits? Welcome to the Misfit Heroes podcast. My name is Chris, and together we are going on a journey. Misfits, let's talk about vision. I'm not talking about the Avenger, I mean your eyes. Many would say it's the most important of our five senses, and yet I bet there are so many things that you don't know about eyesight that would probably astonish you. And wouldn't you know, I've compiled a list right here. Did you know that the average optometrist sees over 600 patients per the World Health Organization? What about this? 75% of Americans, which is over 197 million Americans, use corrective eyewear. How about this zinger? Did you know that 1 in 7 people around the world lack access to eye exams and glasses? Well, I'm lucky enough to have 20/20 vision, but my family isn't. And on a recent trip to the optometrist, we couldn't find a pair of prescription eyewear for under $400 before insurance. So what if you're in a third world country? These people throw their vision needs by the wayside. My guest tonight has an amazing story about the journey he's taken to create a new way of delivering eye exams and glasses, starting at just $3 per pair. His travels have led him to spread hope for those with vision issues around the globe, and you do not want to miss this story. Seriously, it's like an action movie. Hollywood, I can't believe you haven't jumped on this yet. Misfits, let's talk about the vision. Please welcome Pastor Greg Wiens of Global Vision 2020.
Playing the Misfit Heroes podcast.
Well, Greg, welcome to the Misfit Heroes podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great.
Great. I'm glad to have you on here. I've really been looking forward to talking to you. Before we get started, Greg, I am a father to a toddler, so I'm doing my best to work on puns and dad jokes for the future generations. So, first and foremost, let's just jump right into it. What is the vision for Global Vision?
Our goal is to get prescription eyeglasses to the 2.5 billion who have no access to optometry services for as inexpensively as possible in a sustainable way.
I don't think a lot of people know how badly that our eyes and our vision are just, we have so many problems that aren't talked about with it in the media. It's just not something that you hear about very often. So what sort of got you guys into what you're doing with Global Vision?
Well, actually, vision is the number one disability that is not currently being addressed in the world. And simple, spherical, single vision eyeglasses can solve 92% of the people's problems with that. So here's what I mean. There are 2.5 billion people in the world who have no access to optometric services. 1/3 of those people, on average, don't see well enough that they would fail the driver's test if they went for the driver's eye exam in North America. That is a significant portion of people whose quality of life and their ability to work and make a living is affected by their inability to see. So what we've come up with is a project that solves 92% of that for approximately $3 American, where we can get those patients to, our goal is 20/40 vision. That means you pass that North American driver's test. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's amazing. So how are you getting these $3 eyeglasses? I mean, let's disclaim something first. You're in Canada, I'm in America, and you can make as many jokes as you want to about our healthcare system, okay? But but how are you getting these $3 eyeglasses to people? Because it's kind of like blowing my mind.
Okay, well, let me just step back and explain how we even came into existence.
Sure.
Our executive director, his name is Kevin White. He was a logistics officer who worked for the United States military and NATO. And he gave oversight to all the international development projects in Africa for a time. One of the projects that he gave oversight to was used eyeglasses being handed out in the field. So that's the model where you give your old glasses into the optometry shop where you bought them from, and then they try to find somebody in the developing world who needs those glasses, maybe lines up with them. Now, here's a reality. Now, that's better than nothing, but really not much better. Here's what I mean. How many of those glasses are not in very good shape? How are they going to line up with somebody in the developing world, especially when you're dealing with access and cylinders, that's for astigmatisms or transitions? The chances of you having the right glasses that line up, that give somebody 20/40 vision or better, is really, really low. So low for the fact that the vast majority of those glasses actually get thrown out in the field. So what I mean is you set up an optometry clinic using used glasses in Central Africa, well over 90% of those glasses will end up in a landfill. Because just think about it, it's statistically impossible. And then, as I was talking to an optometrist who's used this system just yesterday, Dr. Vinny from New York City. Hey, Dr. Vinny. He was saying how when he did this, he had a perfect example of, he found somebody who had 20/20 vision with the glasses kit that he had pulled out of used glasses, and he was ecstatic about it, but the frames were pink. And this was a 50-year-old man. He's not going to wear those glasses. He was so happy that he found 20/20 vision, but this man is not going to wear glasses that make him look foolish. So the man ended up settling on something that was far, far from perfect, almost barely helped at all, when he had the glasses that did help him. So this is a replacement of that system, and we've come up with a totally novel new idea. So here's, I guess, in a sense, how you can say how it works is when you get glasses in bulk, it's actually relatively cheap when you're dealing with single vision.
Right.
Here's what I mean by single vision. They don't have bifocals added to them. They don't have an astigmatism correction added to them. They're just spherical correction. That's done in bulk and in mass. Frames that you get, like these, they're the sports frames that you buy at the store, good flexible plastic, good spring-loaded armatures. Everything is actually really, really inexpensive.
You speak with a lot of passion about Global Vision 2020. Did you have any experience in optometry before working here, or how did you get involved?
No, I initially read an article in National Geographic about this process just almost 14 years ago, and how Kevin White was working with this in Africa. And I reached out to him. And the reason I reached out to him is I had the same dream 3 nights in a row that I needed to get involved. And unbelievably, immediately, like within 10 minutes after I reached out to him, he connected back and said, hey, I would love to talk about how we could work together. And that began the process of us trying things out all over the world together. So a Mennonite pastor, which is what my job is, and a U.S. military, a Marine science officer, working together. That's just, there's no other way to say it. That's just God at work.
It's kismet.
That's right.
Let's go back to the glasses a little bit. So I'm not sure, do you have one of the kits with you? Could you walk us through like how this works?
Yes, I do. Okay, so the whole process came together from Kevin White realizing that when a person puts on a pair of binoculars and they turn the focus dial till they can see clearly, that's actually telling you what your prescription is, but you don't know what it is. So here's what I mean. A fellow officer had taken off his glasses, put on Kevin's binoculars, turned the focus till they could see. He passed them back to Kevin, and Kevin's like, wait, I'm seeing your prescription now. What if I created a device that did the same thing, but tells you the prescription? So in a sense, that's what this is. So this is a device where the patient simply puts it on, they turn the dial till they see clearly, and that tells you what the prescription is. I'll show you the lens taking it off. It goes from a +6 to a -6. Okay. And going through the little slit in the tester, it goes by diopters of 0.25, and that tells the prescription. So in this case, I'm just messing around with it, and I'll have a green 1 on the left and a red 4 on the right. So I just simply grab from a lens box that I have right next to me, and I'll grab the correct lenses out of the lens box that correspond. So this is -1.25, and this is -1.5. You just simply take them out of the bag, take out a corresponding. We have 3 different colors of frames. I have 2 out here right now. And you just snap them in place. So they go in actually very tight. It's a very satisfying sound when you get them to snap like that.
Yeah, it was a good click.
It's a good click. And actually, this is the biggest frustration that people have in the field. They can't snap them in because it's all technique. It's not strength, it's technique. Okay? And
all right.
You've got prescription glasses.
Wow. Just like that. That's amazing. It's kind of blowing my mind a little bit because when we go and we have an eye exam here in America, it's a big to do. It's like an hour long. And yes, they are using, I'm sure, much more advanced equipment. But I mean, in other countries where they don't have access to the same level of healthcare systems like we do in more developed countries, I mean, this has got to be game changing for them.
This is. We've won many awards for this. We were the first winners of National Geographic's Chasing Genius, which is actually ironic because how I first read about it, it was just a very short write-up of here's some interesting things that are happening in the world. And later on, when I came and became part of Global Vision 2020, it was myself that nominated Kevin for the award, and that really kickstarted so many things. We won last year the United States Patent Office's Award for Humanity for the in the medical category, because this gives access to the bottom 2.5 billion people with no access to optometric services.
I love when I hear about people making a difference in a community that is not their own. They're going outside of not only their borders, but they're going around the world to do this. You know, I watched a video last night, I believe, that said you guys were the first in the government of Malawi, I believe, was who you were talking about. And you guys were the first in Malawi to have government support where they didn't really have any type of healthcare. They came to you. How did that play out?
Okay, so actually our starting point was my first places that I go to are UN refugee camps. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, they've already got a low level of medical care that's already needed there. Because of the connections that we have with the military and the UN, it's actually easier for us to initially bring this in, get the permission from the medical team, and say, hey, this is a project that can be added on to already existing programs. Keep that in mind. That's our total model. Is not that we're starting something from scratch, but we're getting a powerful tool into the hands of the local workers. Okay? So we brought this into the camp, and it was revolutionary. Let me give you an example of the first time I brought it in. So this was just over 4 years ago. We came in, I brought in about 3,000 glasses. I trained a team of 12, all of them refugees living in the camp. And within a couple of days, they were the ones handing out all the glasses. Not me, them. On the last day I was there, a lady came to me. She had heard about the glasses kits. And she was a teacher. She'd fled from Congo about 6 months earlier, had lost her glasses while she was fleeing. She came in with 2 bad eye infections. And you can't test somebody until their eyes are healed up. She had to get some eye drops. I said, I'm sorry, I can't test you today. You're infectious. You need to go get in line to get the eye drops. Sorry. And she started to weep. She said, I heard you're leaving tomorrow. And I said, well, yes, I am. But this project is continuing on after I leave. I've trained this team, and they're going to be running every Monday and every Friday here at the camp, at the medical office, eyeglass clinics. And she just was so thankful. 2 weeks later, I got a picture of her with my team leader, Paul, who I'll talk about later on, just beaming. They had made her glasses. Since then, almost 30,000 glasses have gone out through that little clinic.
Wow.
So because of that, the Malawi government said, this is amazing. Why is this happening only in the camp? Can we bring this outside of the camp? So we connected up with the Optometry Association of Malawi, who we have their complete blessing as long as we don't set up a little kiosk in the mall next to their optometry shops, which isn't our goal at all. Our goal is filling in the gap where there is no access. So in a nutshell, it's a nation of 18 million people. They basically said this 1.5 million people, they have access. The rest of the country, we love it if you could set up clinics. And that's exactly what we've been empowering them to do. So you think about that, we have enabled and empowered and increased the amount of glasses going out to the bottom end while actually empowering the local optometrists who we're partnering with them. Because remember, we're able to help about 92% of the patients see 20/40 or better, but their goal is 20/20 vision. So we're always partnering up with the local optometrists saying, hey, there's other eye care issues that they can take care of. And they don't see us at all as a competition because we're working hard not to be competition.
Yeah, I would assume you're essentially being marketing for them as well, for the most part. I mean, you're basically saying this is somebody that wouldn't come here. Come on in.
That's exactly right. And in line with this, we're using the same frames from the same manufacturers that they are. So these exact same frames are all over Malawi. Well, actually, if you go to Canada, I can go down the road. These are the exact same frames that are being sold. They call them activewear or athletic glasses. Why? Because they're the ones you're going to go wear playing soccer or tennis, because they're sturdy. Yeah. If you get hit in the face with a ball, they most likely won't break, and they're light. So that actually works out really good, because let's say we have a patient that comes into the refugee camp or now the rural clinics that we're running, and they got 20/40 vision, or maybe a little bit less, but improved dramatically. And we said, hey, you probably have an astigmatism. You have other eye conditions, but the optometrist, they can get you to 20/20. So they can come back. They don't have to buy the frames from the optometrist. They can just simply get the lenses snapped in. And everybody on every side is loving it.
Because it's not a proprietary product like that, and the fact that they don't have to use your glasses, that's a big deal as well. A lot of people would say, oh, well, this guy's just trying to sell people into his own glasses product, but that's not what you're doing. That's really quite...
Our goal is to get access to the bottom percentage of people.
In addition to being a nonprofit, you talked about it a little bit, you're also a pastor.
Yes.
To what extent has your faith sort of played into this organization as well? I mean, I heard that you're basically extending the kingdom of God with this endeavor as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. Well, this is just a natural outflowing of my faith in a way that I think we're commanded in Scripture. So Jesus' brother James says in James chapter 1, verses 27, religion that our God, our Father, accepts as pure and faultless is look after the orphans and the widows in their distress and keep yourself from being polluted from the world. I look at this as this is what I'm called to do. I'm called to look after the orphans, the fatherless, the poor, the oppressed. James goes on to say in chapter 2, suppose a brother or sister is without food or clothing. In this case, I say glasses. And one of you says, go in peace, keep warm, be well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs. What good is that faith? In the same way, faith by itself, when not accompanied with action, is a dead faith. To me, this is me as a pastor having an actual living way to live out my faith. All the while, all the clinics that I give oversight to with our denomination, the Mennonites, all the money goes back into that community so they can make a living.
That's a beautiful thing. It really breaks down borders. It's very surprising. Like I said, it shouldn't be surprising, but it is. And I love the fact that you all started this nonprofit. I recently, we spoke a little bit beforehand, and, you're about to go on another trip to the Congo. And are you able to tell me a little bit about what's going on with that and what your plans are for it and how that sort of came to pass, your upcoming trip to the Congo?
Well, okay, so next week I leave for almost 3 weeks to be in Congo to help repatriate 20 people, 2 extended families back to Congo. So Here's a couple of things you don't hear about in the news. We often hear about wars and events that are happening in the Western world. We hear lots about Ukraine, and it is tragic. But the biggest war that's going on in the world right now is actually in Africa. Over 500,000 people have died in Ethiopia in the last 6 months.
Wow.
The biggest war since the Second World War in terms of deaths and people being forced to flee as refugees is what I would call the Great African or Great Congalese War. 6 million people died between 1995 and 2006. And perhaps 25 to 30 million people have been forced to be refugees. Okay? So the refugee camps that I go into, and I'm speaking about Malawi specifically, but I'm working with other ones as well in Zambia and in Zimbabwe. But I'm going to speak about Malawi right now. The ones in Malawi are the ones that we've had the most success with the clinics. And during COVID, I was able to keep the clinics running. Now, it was really tight. Here's what I mean by tight. The money stopped coming from the UN to the refugee camps to help feed the refugees. So it dramatically decreased. So it went from approximately $2 a day was being delivered to refugees. It came in usually 1 month lump sums. But that's how people ate. During COVID, due to everything being thrown in upheaval, that dropped to, on average, 40 cents a day.
Wow.
Do you see where we're going?
Yeah.
Famine in the camp. In that camp that we're talking about in Malawi, it was one of the worst places I've ever seen in the entire world. When I visited there during COVID, because I got exemption for status for this is considered an essential medical care, it was really weird to fly on an airplane where it's completely empty. I had a whole bench to myself in coach. It was awesome for sleeping, a weird place to be with travel. No lineups at the airport at all.
Yeah.
The camp became a really, really horribly hard place. So our churches and our church members selling the glasses, using it to help feed their families before COVID, increased their standard of living dramatically. So here's what I mean. They went from 2 meals a day to 3 meals a day, what we take for granted. Protein every single day for one of those meals, maybe even a chicken once a week. All things we take for granted. Incredibly important. During COVID, because all the money from the UN, or not all, but a big part of it dried up, the people in the camp went from 2 meals a day to 1 meal a day, almost no protein. Our people went from 3 meals a day to 2 meals a day. It was horrible. When I was there, they said that they estimated that 15% of the camp, with a camp of 55,000 people, had starved to death that last year.
Oh my gosh.
So over 2 years, 30% of the camp died of starvation. The only people group that wasn't starving were our people, because they were literally living off of eating what they made from the glasses. Now, they didn't do well. They all got thinner. They all got more unhealthy because they weren't eating as much healthy food because there was so much less to purchase. But it was enough to keep them alive. What we came up with that time was we said, hey, is there a way to start getting some of our people out of the camp? Can we start sending them back to Congo, to safe areas? The war in the area they fled from, it's the region of Goma, is still unsafe. They've got 3 things going against them. Goma has an active volcano that's blowing up. They've got Ebola, and the war is still simmering. It's not a safe place to go. So we looked at where's the area that we could send them to, and the area we're sending them to is what's called the Copper Belt, about 1,200 kilometers away, that has the best economy and the most people who have the finances to buy glasses. And in the region of 4 million people, there's 5 optometrists.
Wow.
We've relocated 20 people to Congo, and we're starting up clinic next month where they're going to be selling glasses to our first group that we're selling to are the people working in the mines. They're the people that have a job. So we're specifically first going after the truck drivers. Why? Because they there's about a third of them that need glasses that have no idea that they need glasses or have any accessibility to glasses. And that's where we're going to be starting off. So we've just recently sent 20 of them back to Congo, 10 adults, 10 children, with the hope of this growing that we can send hundreds back.
Well, yeah, you do kind of need to see when you're driving. I do agree with that. Well, I'm hearing you say all these things about an active volcano and all this war. I mean, these trips, they seem kind of dangerous. I mean, going out there, do you sort of take on this understanding that there's significant risk to yourself?
I know there is. I have really good people on the ground that know how to keep me safe. I mean, the one time that I felt unsafe was last time when I was in Malawi in the refugee camp. We had come in. I thought I was going to work in the refugee camp for the trip that I was there for 10 days to, just make sure everything's running well and organize things well. But after one day, we had to leave. I couldn't come back. As we were in the camp, I was mobbed.
Wow.
And what it was all the other people in the camp who knew about what we were doing as Mennonites. They started shouting out my name, saying, "Greg Wiens, you can't just help the Mennonites. You have to help us too." And okay, I want to make it clear. We want to help everyone. But there's only so much one person can do in one situation with one tool. So we were helping our community beforehand, and we were trying to help the community as best, but I couldn't come back into the camp the rest of the trip. Why? Because it wasn't safe for me. And that comes with that safety side. It wasn't just unsafe for me, it was unsafe for our own refugees that were living in the camp. That's where we came up with the idea, we need to relocate these families back. But so there is definitely a danger and a risk. Where I go is places where my friends and connections in the U.S. military say this is a reasonably safe place to go. I'm not saying there's no risk, but it's a safer risk. They tell me the places I'm not allowed to go. I'm not allowed to go to Goma. Remember the place with the active volcano, Ebola, and simmering war. They said, "Greg, right. You're not allowed to go to Goma."
Well, stay away for a little bit, maybe later.
Well, and that's actually one of the interesting things. We actually have some of the young people in their 20s have gone back and they're running an eye clinic there. That one is in itself just remarkable. They grew up as toddlers in the refugee camp, and they've come back with eyeglass kits that I fundraised for them and are selling the glasses to the military, who is trying to, bring about peace, maybe not always in the best ways, but do you know what I mean? And they're saying, "Greg, this is far safer than it was in the refugee camp." And yes, everything's relative, right? They can say, where it's not safe for me to go to Goma, but they're like, "This is much better." They said, "Greg, after 9 o'clock, the police, the army said, if you're out after 9, we'll shoot you." They're like, "This is great. We don't have to worry about anybody breaking into our house." It's all relative, right? Because this goes with what we're doing. So my head of the project in Malawi, part of the reason why we've said we need to relocate is his house has been broken into so many times in the last year. What little food they have is stolen. We can't keep any money in the camp at all, or it's stolen. Here's the tragedy. His daughters have been raped. 2 of them are now pregnant. So us relocating them back to Congo, they just arrived. They're ecstatic. It's still not quote unquote safe by my Western standards. Can you imagine not living with the fear that somebody's going to kick in your door and take your cornmeal?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is part of the reason why we need to do this, and why we've sent the core team that's been running the clinic in the camp. We're still running the clinic in the camp, because that's how we're keeping so many people alive. But getting a place where they have citizenship and move them back to, and start setting up other clinics in this region of 4 million people with 4 optometrists, there's just so much potential.
I mean, that's just so amazing. It's something that we definitely take for granted as well. I don't have any thought in my mind that this afternoon, I mean, granted, somebody could, but I don't have any thought in my mind that something like that could happen to me or my family. It's just not expected. And when you're dealing with somebody in these basically war zones that you're going into,
Yeah.
that's just an everyday happenstance. That would give the average person anxiety, I think.
I'm going to be honest. I have been anxious as I'm going to bed lately. So
Yeah.
if you think that I'm just made of steel, I'm not. But I know the need, and I know these people. I love them. I want to tell you the brief story of Safari, who's our executive director for the Mennonite Brethren there, the Mennonite churches, and Paul. Safari, he was the son of a very well-known Mennonite pastor in Congo. So many people don't know the largest group of Mennonites in the whole world are actually in Congo. There are more Congolese Mennonites than any other group in the world. So they outnumber us in North America 3-1. His father was a very well-known Mennonite pastor, and he was killed at the beginning of the war, 1997, 1998. Safari, as a 17-year-old, was the only one to survive of the entire extended family. He hid in the cornfield, and he escaped at the night. That's the only reason why he survived. It took him 3 years to end up in Malawi, which is almost 2,000 kilometers away in the refugee camp. Lots of tragedy, lots of heartache, lots of hurt. As he settled into Malawi, he met up with 3 other pastors' kids who had very similar stories, and they decided to start a church. And it started off with 4 people in his little hut. I've sat in the hut that he started his church in. In the next 3 years, the church grew to about 200 people. And they were just thankful that God was connecting people back up. People that had family connections or cousins, or they knew of each other, and they were able to worship God together. Then one Sunday, they heard a buzz in the camp. A man named Gilbert had showed up, and Gilbert was the head of the militia that had massacred Safari's family.
Oh, my goodness.
And everybody's like, we need to kill this man. And Safari, as the church leader, said, no, that's not what I'm called to do as a follower of Jesus. He went, found him, brought him into his house. He was at the edge of starvation, death. He had been beaten, because that's how these things happen. You're now the head of the militia at this point, and now you're fleeing for your life. Yeah. He nurtured him back to health, led him to know Jesus, and helped find his wife and his surviving children himself. Gilbert lived with him for 3 years in that little hut. And Gilbert is now one of our church leaders that's staying behind at the camp to continue to help run the clinics.
Wow.
Because he says, this is where I'm called to be. That's Safari, who's the one who's now the first one to go back to Congo, to restart this project, to start bringing people back. Paul, he was a registered nurse. He's 47, 48 years old, same age as me. He had been a nurse, and he had just finished university. He had dreamed about becoming a family doctor. That was his goal in life. And Paul was the one that ended up taking on, in so many ways, the role of being a family doctor. He had the most training of any of our Mennonites in the camp for medical backgrounds. So he did everything from catching babies to bind broken wounds to everything in between, as he had the highest standards of education for being in the medical field. And he was the one that we put in charge of the eyeglass clinic. Paul is a remarkable man, brilliant. I have no doubt if he had been able to stay in Congo without any war, he would have ended up being a doctor. He's the one that his extended family, we've relocated them back to Congo. They're the ones that are starting the clinics to get this kick-started so we can start bringing more and more people back. And like I said, Paul's family's gone through some big heartache and hardship. Why? Because they're one of the few families that have 2 meals a day. That if you break into Paul's home, there's going to be cornmeal.
Yeah.
There might be even some lentils or some beans. And it's been a horrible, horrible place. Knowing that he's in Congo now with his extended family, in a region they don't know anything of the culture about. It's so far away. And what are they doing? They're selling glasses. Selling glasses to people who have no access. It's just awesome.
That's an amazing story. I mean, really, that sounds like a movie almost. It's so crazy to hear this.
feels like on days where I'm talking, it's just like, wow, this is unreal.
Yeah, and I mean your passion behind this project is really quite endearing. It's so amazing to hear about things that we definitely don't hear about. Like you said, I mean, I had no idea that 500,000 people have died in the last 6 months in Ethiopia. That's just a mind-boggling statistic to me. We don't hear about that on the news.
Yeah.
Are you mainly focused on Africa, or are you also doing Global Vision 2020 here in Canada and America where you're at?
Well, okay, so here's some of the things that have been interesting. Since I got on TikTok the reason I went on TikTok is because it was COVID and I was bored and there wasn't as much to do. And it's blown up on TikTok.
Yeah.
We have had connections with really interesting people who've called us. So, for instance, the Manitoba government, where I live in Canada, they approached me and said, hey, this is really, really interesting. So they're working on legislation to make this accessible to homeless shelters, to settlement agencies, and to remote northern communities. They're working bipartisan with all political parties, and they're working with the Optometry Association to craft legislation. So again, we don't want people buying the kits we just talked about and setting up a kiosk at the mall. That's not what this is for.
Yeah.
But working on legislation so a registered nurse with training can use this for the people who have no access.
Wow.
So that's been really cool to see my own home province contact me and say, hey, how can we use this in our back door? And I've got a number of projects where we're just in the very preliminary meeting stages about it, but I'm really excited. We've had great buy-in from the Optometry Association because they're saying, hey, we want to give direction on how to use this properly, which we want. And now we've had some states, some universities in the US say, hey, we're really interested in talking about that as well. So we're in some really beginning preliminary stages of seeing how this can be used for the poor in America. I foresee the same type of thing. Homeless shelters and prisons. That's what they're saying. Maybe those are good FDA trials to see where they can happen in the US. Now, I know this. If you don't know this, you need to know this. Anything that goes to the FDA goes really slow.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be next week that they say, hey, this can go out to every homeless shelter in America. But they like the idea.
Yeah.
They're going to check off all their boxes. They're going to cross all their T's, dot all their I's. But hey, they're the ones that are saying this has some really good potential in those right settings. So what does that mean yet? I don't know. But I'm pretty excited to see where it's going.
Yeah, I mean that's a very exciting proposition. I think I think that it needs to be addressed. And I mean, if you're trying to deal with the FDA, I mean, no, I'm not going to make any comments about saying, maybe if you had a check for $500 million or something like that, I mean, you'd be good to go. But hey, that's here nor there. That's here nor there.
Within that, it sometimes takes the right people to pull.
Yeah.
And when you've got some really big name universities in America who have a heart for healthcare, that has more pull. And funny thing, that all came out of TikTok. Who would have thought?
It's both the best and the worst platform in ways.
You're totally right.
That's how I found you guys.
You're totally right. You're swiping and like, oh, that's amazing. Oh no, swipe faster.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. It reminds me a lot of, back in, I don't know, I grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s when I was in college and stuff. And you'd be sitting there I don't know if you were ever there at like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, channel surfing, and you're just sitting there. You're not even really trying to find anything.
Totally. And then you're like, wait.
Yeah, exactly. And then you find, I mean, like I said, that's how I found out about you guys, and you discover all types of new things. So it's like when you do find something, it's like a diamond in the rough that it's like, oh, wow, this is amazing,
Absolutely. Can I tell you how people, if they want to get involved, what they can do?
Yeah, 100%. That's actually what I was about to ask you next. Are you a mind reader?
So if you are connected with a medical outreach, this is a great tool to add to it, to any of the ones. So let's say you're a group of dentists going to Honduras to teach people how to do dental work. How many of those people you're going there to teach how to do dental work need a pair of glasses themselves?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the starting point. You test all the workers you've got.
Right.
This is a kit that weighs 50 pounds, 550 glasses, everything you need, statistically based on a demographic from ages 12 to 92, including the tester, all the eye charts, everything you need for $2,000 American. That's one checked bag, a glasses kit that's good for a village of 2,500 people. This is how we've set this up, and why when we say it's $3 a pair, it's amortized out that kit comes out to just over $3 per pair of glasses when you're doing in that setting. And that's our entire model. Is not that we're setting up clinics individually selling. People keep saying on TikTok, sell me a pair of glasses for $3 online. No, that's not how we work at all. We get this as a kit to a local clinic that has the already set up credentials, and they can get glasses out for as little as $3 per pair, handed out in the field in an existing center, and continue it running like that story I told you about, where the teacher that came in that had her glasses lost as she fled, she's come back and bought 3 pair of glasses over the last 3 years. Why? Because she's like, hey, I can go back every Monday and Friday and buy more at the same clinic.
That's amazing. Now, when you're out there in these, sort of low income communities, I believe you said earlier that you train people that are on site as well. I mean, do they have to have any type of knowledge or background with this? Or is it really like, do they need to be a doctor, or can you teach anybody how to do this?
Well, there does need to be some understanding of things. If I'm going to go for the gold standard, the family doctor, the nurse, and the high school teacher are my 3 best people to work with. Of course, outside of an optometrist. The optometrist is the gold standard, right? But those 3 have great concepts of what to do. Whether it's from crowd control, that's where the teacher comes in. You always need that, 60-year-old woman teacher to keep everybody in line, right? That nurse or that family doctor, because then they're able to deal with other eye conditions that come up. Now, a nurse's aide can do an awful lot of it. I don't just pull whoever off the streets, teach them how to do this, because when I do the demonstration, I'm showing you the end results. There's numerous things to get up to that spot. So somebody that has some basic education and medical background is the best person to work with. And teachers are already thinking in that mindset, even if they're not doing medical work themselves. They often are a really good combination of team together.
Just speaking from a 10,000 foot view perspective, we've talked a little bit about what you are doing and how you're accomplishing these things, but what exactly do you guys need next? Do you need volunteers? Do you need funding? What is the next big thing for Global Vision 2020? What do you guys need to get to the next level?
2 things. I'll speak first for my clinic that I'm coming up so close in just over a week and a half going to Congo. I have a hard time saying no to bringing people out. So here's what I mean. They're living in the refugee camp, and it's horrible. So instead of taking 10, like I initially said, I said yes to 20. So funds. I could totally use some help with funds, because I can't stand the idea of leaving people behind now, hoping they'll come later when they're at risk of theft, rape, and murder. So I took more than I should have bid off. So I always, whenever I travel, I always have a contingency fund, about 25% more than I expected to spend. So in case something happens, I spent it all on bringing more people.
Yeah.
So if somebody feels called to give towards this, everybody's made it there. Everybody's got housing. I've got just enough glasses to kick off the program. So I've got 3,000 glasses there. That was exactly the right amount for 10 people. I now have 20 people there instead of 10. If somebody feels compelled to say, hey, I want to help out with this, we can line you up with tax-deductible receipts. If there's an organization that wants to put their name next to Mennonite Eye Clinics, sponsored by, we'll be glad to do that. And in so many ways that will actually help kickstart, because I'm not exaggerating when I say this. 20 is my starting point. It was supposed to be 10, But 20 is my starting point of people coming back to this area. I'm genuinely hoping that this moves us into hundreds, maybe thousands. We have 2,000 people in the refugee camp that are part of our community. I would love to have every single one of them out and hand this to another group and say, you're now in charge of the clinics, this other group. So I can say, hey, look, I'm helping this group now because we all left. And I don't mean that we all left to get out of there, good riddance, but maybe it is good riddance. Send them back home. So that's the number one thing that's right on my heart right now. The second one is actually long-term strategic planning that comes with this. Right now, because of TikTok in part, we can't keep up with our sales. And what I mean by that is, as an organization, we have a float of, we order 25,000 glasses at a time from the manufacturer. There's a window to wait for them to come from the manufacturer in China or India or Vietnam, wherever we happen to be ordering them from. And because TikTok has made us so popular, we got our order in for 25,000 glasses 2 weeks ago. They haven't arrived yet. They're all sold. Every single one of them.
Wow.
But we don't have more money as an organization to have a float of more than 25,000 glasses. So what we need is somebody who's willing to say, hey, I'm willing to come along with a low interest or 0% interest loan. I'm meeting with a businessman next week asking for that. That says we can float 250,000. Here's a couple of things that happens with that. Your prices drop the bigger the order is. So we could see a 20, maybe a 25% drop if we have that type of thing come in. That too, we will have the orders that people want as they go out. And this is only going to grow exponentially. And I mean that. Like, at some point, we're going to need to be ordering 1 million glasses at a time. I'm not exaggerating when I say the need is this great that in just Africa alone, there's the need for 200 million glasses going out a year in this manner. Just Africa alone.
Yeah.
So we need somebody that says, I'm business-minded. Maybe I'm sitting on money that I've raised over my life, and this will still go to your descendants. You're still going to be able to give this to your family, but we're able to use it right now to have the stock of order of glasses that's going to bring the price down and increase us to where we need to be so that we can really, really solve this problem in the world.
Well, it's a fantastic plan, and I'm just real excited about what you're doing. You know, one more thing that I wanted to talk about, we didn't get into earlier, is this concept of holistic ministry.
Yes.
That I heard you talk about earlier. You know, can you explain how the church is growing through your ministry in these other nations? Are people coming to Christ because of this as well?
What we've done is we've actually freed workers in the church who work in the clinics to have a good job that has great interaction with the community. I want to make it clear. Everybody gets access to the glasses, no matter what race, religion, creed, tribe. Everybody has the same access to the same price for the glasses. And this gets people interacting with each other in a really positive way. Here's a great example of one in Malawi that's just blown everybody else's mind, but I really felt it. I'm a spirit-led person.
Yeah.
That means I let the Holy Spirit say, hey, this is where we need to go. I went to the police on the second trip I did and came to the chief of police, even though I was told by the team, we don't want to deal with the police. They're the bad guys because they're scary, right? You think about it. You're a refugee living in somebody else's country. The police are scary. I went to, on Sunday afternoon, when I said I was going to take a nap, so I lied. And I went to the chief of police with my backpack. Shame, pastor, taking a nap. And I made him a pair of glasses. And I said, I bet you a third of all of your police officers need glasses. And that police officer, 50-some years old, needed both reading glasses and a pair of driving glasses. What I mean is he was about a -1. So his eyes weren't bad, but you could just tell, like, looking off in the distance, his eyes were worn out. He's like, this is amazing. Who are you with? And I told him who we were with. And then they showed up in the police cruiser with me later on, and all the team was freaking out. They're like, oh no, what did Greg do? And I brought all the police on Sunday afternoon and we made them glasses. And they made the most amazing connections. They're friends and allies now in the community instead of fearful of each other. And this just opens doors in ways you never, ever expected. When I talk about holistic ministry, this allows people who saw each other as enemies to now be friends. And the police in Malawi have done more for us getting our name out in a good way than any other single entity in the country. And who would have thought of that except for letting the Holy Spirit lead in holistic ministries?
Amen. Well, that is a beautiful thing. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times doing this podcast, I see scripture just played out in real life. It's really amazing to hear you say that.
Well, I genuinely feel like I'm in Acts chapter 29, verse 27,000 or something, right?
This whole thing, it's this massive undertaking that you guys are taking on. It just seems like such a large goal.
Oh, totally.
But I realize you have to start somewhere.
Right.
Do you have any advice? I know you said that TikTok is blowing you up as well, but do you have any advice for someone that is trying to accomplish such a large task like that? Do you have any advice for them as to how to get started or best plan of action for you?
I'd say a couple of advices of things. Remember, I've said I'm a Mennonite pastor. I'm working with U.S. military and the police forces around the world, which is completely outside of the normal of what my community tends to work with.
Sure.
My first advice is when you're saying, I want to do something in the name of Christ to change the world, be willing to go outside of what you think is your normal.
Yep.
Yeah, can I work with those people over there? Can I work with them? They're not in my normal. They are all coming in with the vast majority want to be used in a powerful way, whether they know it's in the name of Jesus or not. We're innately wanting to do something for the good. There are very, very, very few people I've met in the world where that person woke up that morning planning to do evil. Now, that's a totally different story. So willingness to come in with humility, find what you agree upon, and work yourself out from there instead of coming together and finding out what don't we agree on and let that be the dividing point. So there are things that I have as personal issues that we are going to be different on, but I'm going to look for what we agree on so that we can bring about this change together in a positive way. And along the way, I might change some of your ideas. And along the way, there's going to be ideas that are changed about me too.
Well, I think that's solid advice, whether you're trying to help somebody out or not. I think that's just the perfect way of looking at it.
It comes down to being willing to look for experts that are outside of your normal too, and willing to take their expertise.
Yeah.
Everybody slags the UN I talk to, but they don't actually understand how many of these people in the UN, especially in the medical category, they're there for the right reasons. You can argue about a lot of things, find out what you have in common. That's where our starting point is. But a lot of these workers that are in the UN are there knowing that if they were in the public field, they'd be making more of a living, easier life, and life would be a lot less complex. Starting off by saying, let's work together and giving people the benefit of the doubt. That doesn't mean you just accept everything that everybody says. No, of course I go through the lens of what does Scripture say to me? But starting out like saying, who are the ones that we can work together and come with humility in it? That's a really, really big part. Humility goes an awful long way to working on changing the world for the better.
Like I said, I think that's good advice just for anything in particular. I think that's good advice for even if you're just trying to make your way through the world. I think that's just the proper way of handling yourself. I know that you said you were big on TikTok. What are some other ways people can find out about you? I mean, what's the best way of contacting you? Do you have a website or your social media profiles or any of that stuff?
Our website is the best way to go. You can see all of our credentials. We're all peer-reviewed, and clinical trials have been overseen and published by Johns Hopkins University, New England College of Optometry, in partnership with University of Vietnam and University of Mongolia, that this does work. So going to the website shows you where all those links are at. It shows you how to order the kits as a partner and get involved. So our website has tons of traffic, lots of good stuff, lots of news articles where it talks about this is how it's being used around the world. That's a great look. That is probably the best place that I can direct people towards. TikTok has actually done the best with driving people towards our website because our web traffic has increased dramatically. Other ones are we're published by the International Agency for Prevention of Blindness. Those articles are all linked in our website. That's the wing of the United Nations for trying to help eye care. They're the ones that are really leading the charge to say, hey, this is something that we can do as a community to dramatically improve the lives of people. Because, like I said, eye care is one of the biggest unmet needs. Did you know that a person who sees 3 lines or better on the eye charts for distance vision and gets the right pair of reading glasses, who's over 45, will see a 25 to 40% wage increase in what they make in the next year?
I did not know that. You mentioned your website. What is your website and what's your social media handles?
So our website is www.gv2020, and the name of the organization is Global Vision 2020. And right now, our only real big media one is TikTok. I'm getting about 1 million views a week right now, and I don't have enough time to add it to all the other ones that I know I need to. So yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Well, we'll put links to all that stuff down in the show notes, like I said, but we're winding down towards the end of every episode. I ask every single guest the same question, and I always get this look in their eyes like a deer in the headlights because I never prepare them for anything. So get ready. But with that being said, what was the last goal that you completed, and what is the next goal that you want to set for yourself?
The last goal that I completed was I started the first project in South America in Peru.
Okay.
And we got our license for it. We have 2 young doctors in their late 20s who've recently been licensed to set up an eye clinic right at the edge of the jungle. And the goal was to get all the licensing done in 6 months, and we got it done in 5.
Wow.
And they are now running clinic, and they're employing predominantly pastors' wives as the clinic workers, which is just amazing to me. My wife is pretty pumped about that one. So that was my goal, and I'm so pumped to go back to that area because it's right on the border with Brazil and Peru, to go back next summer with a group from Canada to expand the project and meet all the people who are now working for me and with me.
That's fantastic. I hope that plays out well for you. That's really cool. I mean, that you're doing this all around the world and there's it's just free and widely available for anyone everywhere. And the fact that it's making such a massive impact in not only helping people with the issues that they're having with vision, but just growing communities as well and healing hurt. It's a beautiful thing. I love what you're doing. It's really impressive to me.
The next goal that I have is after that I'm shooting for is for 2023. This year we'll probably move close to 150,000, maybe 175,000 glasses. My goal is for 2023 to have 1 million glasses go out next year.
Well, I believe you can do it. I believe you can do it. And I hope that Misfits, we can help any way that we can. Definitely go check out the link in the show notes and be sure to just check them out. I mean, it's a very interesting platform. It's a very interesting idea that you have, that you just basically came up with the idea of becoming everybody's eye doctor if they don't have access to it. It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, I love what you're doing. I really appreciate your time coming on here. I think this has just been very fun and intriguing, and I'm excited for what's to come next for both you and the organization. I think that you guys are just doing fantastic things around the world.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Well, Misfits, we did it. That's our episode. As always, I want to thank you so much for listening, and thanks again to our sponsors. If you want to support any of the sponsors of this podcast, there are affiliate links on the sponsors tab of our website over at www.misfit-heroes.com. You can also find links to all of our social media there, so be sure to follow us for immediate up-to-date info about the podcast. Please, if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to help me out, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button down below so you're notified of new episodes as they're released, and make sure to leave a rating and review of the show on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Truly, Misfits, I love you. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, be kind, love one another, and be a hero.